Welcome back to the show. I'm Hal Sparks with Philip Ittner and Johnny Millian. We're already answering questions in the chat room. It's because we love those guys so much. Thank you guys for joining us, by the way, in our chat, being supporters. Patreon.com/Hal Sparks. And, of course, on Twitch, you can subscribe today. If you have Amazon Prime, it doesn't cost you a dime. And YouTube, all you got to do is check the like. I don't want you to ring the bell. I don't need to follow you around. I don't need to be like the Chinese government and have you know whenever I log on or whatever you log on. You don't need that kind of crap. Just subscribe and give a thumbs up or a thumbs down, because I don't care. The nice thing is that trolls do nothing but help. So now, speaking of which, is it pretty regular in Ukraine that they call the Russians orcs? I've seen so much of that over here.
Yes and no.
Mm-hmm.
Yes and no. A lot of people actually resist doing that because I've heard the argument a lot from Ukrainians that orcs are mythical creatures, and to kind of like pull away from the fact that these are terrible human beings,
anthropomorphize them,
and that they're to be responsible.
They
to make them this kind of mythical thing. Although I've also heard a lot of Ukrainians calling them orcs.
Yeah, it's become like a Lord of the Rings thing. Just that's the level that they fight them on. Johnny, we've already got some questions, so I'd love to hear some of those from him.
So Ed's 3D Tech is always coming in early, and he's wondering if the communications on the front line has improved at all in the Ukrainian army.
Yeah, I definitely think it has. I think I heard about a month ago that they had been improving their lines of communication on the front line. So, also they went through a pretty static period there, so that might have been contributing to it as well. But it's my understanding that those issues have been resolved.
Great.
All right, so another quickie. I've got one from Templeton Zarat. Oh wait, that's about the happy ending.
We'll save that. We'll save that for
saving that one. Sorry. Connie Kelly's got a couple of questions. Will the Ukraine now retaliate and start hitting behind the Russian lines on a more regular basis, and will they maybe target Moscow now that they've got longer range missiles?
They don't have the capacity to hit Moscow, and even if they did, I don't think they would do it, because they would have, the only system that they could use would be their Scuds, their Tochkas. The HIMARS won't reach Moscow, and even if they could, they've guaranteed us that they would not use them inside of Russia for fear of Russian retaliation. And the Ukrainians have openly said, we're going to adhere to that. I don't think they're going to try and strike at Moscow, but they will continue to strike behind enemy lines. Absolutely. They're going to go for that's exactly what their tactic is. They're going to try and destroy their supply line so that they cannot. I mean, Hal, you mentioned that there was speculation that Lysychansk wouldn't have fallen.
Yes.
If maybe that ammo depot in Donbass had been taken out, a week earlier or 2 weeks earlier. I absolutely 100% think that's possible. I mean, they are definitely targeting their supply route. They're not going as much for the front lines. They're going for the
for the record route, by the way.
Then the Russians are just out.
For the record, there is a single American to blame for the fall of Lysychansk then in that regard, and that would be Rand Paul. Rand Paul was the one who put the delay on stuff that lasted about a week and a half. That lengthened the amount of time that aid package would have started, and the cascading effect of that is that 2 cities were bombed like crazy by the Russians, and the civilians there, many of them were killed and driven out of their homes. Had that not happened, the Ukrainians could have defended that entire area before they ever made a move on either of those 2 areas. Period. End of story. That is, I blame him.
Rand Paul's history when it comes to Russia is atrocious.
Yes. I'm glad the hot rods are still running in Ukraine, though. That's good. It's nice. All right, and John, John, we got time. Johnny, grab another one real quick.
I've got a couple more here. I've got one from Andrea Brower, one of our mods. Are the Russians just hitting places like you described in your latest YouTube out of spite, or is there a military move on their minds?
Oh, it's out of spite. 100%. Well, no, not 100%. It's massively out of spite. They're doing it if you're going to hit behind our lines, we're going to hit behind yours. Mm-hmm. And there's no safe place in Ukraine. They're distinctly making that point. They're sending a message with what they're hitting. And as a matter of fact, I believe it was last night's address when President Zelensky came out and said, we have intelligence that their intention is to now try and conduct a campaign of terror, to try and demoralize us.
Yeah.
And he said that, of course, they will not achieve this, but what it means is that every city is now under the threat of being attacked. So he said, when you hear the sirens, take them seriously, because that's part of the problem. What happened in Venetia is you hear sirens. Look, I feel the same way. I hear sirens all the time, whether I'm in Kiev or Odessa or Lviv. It's a commonplace thing. But because the early warning system doesn't know exactly where the missiles are going, they do a blanket alarm. And so you'll get, like in Venetia, even if Venetia had not been hit, I don't think at all in this conflict. And so, but they were still getting alarms all the time, because when something shoots out of the Black Sea, it could be going to Lviv, it could be going to Venetia, it could be going to Ivano-Frankivsk, it could be going to any number of different locations in Western Ukraine. So all alarms go off. And the problem with that then becomes, if you hear it all the time and nothing happens, people, it's a the sky is falling sort of, Chicken Little thing. And eventually, or the boy who called wolf. And they don't respond to it. So Zelensky came out in his presidential address, which he does every day, and said, don't ignore them right now, because there is clearly an intent to respond to the HIMARS by attacking behind our lines as far as possible to try and demoralize us and send a message that they can hit us anywhere. So I absolutely think a major contributor to where they're hitting right now is out of response to the HIMARS.
Yeah, but again, not as precise as the HIMARS themselves. So they're just it's more of a terrorist strategy.
Absolutely.
They're basically trying to terrify the people into, don't you dare fight back. And again, this is my argument, that they found a way to take MAD, mutual assured destruction, which was supposed to stop everyone from warring. Like Alexander Nobel thought that the creation of dynamite was so terrible that it would stop everybody from fighting, because nobody would want this kind of horror in their neighborhood. And the idea that MAD stops us from doing this wars. What has happened is Russia's used the threat of MAD for all conventional warfare, all the way up to terrorism. Like, they straight up don't care. And it's not a situation where like we had in Iraq, where a lot of our citizens were like, we don't want to do this, and we eventually we elected people to move us away from that, and we now, as a strategy, are gun shy, quite frankly, about almost any interaction, because we learned from that thing. That's not the same thing. In the case of Russia, they're just all in on this forever. There's not a point where, short of the babushkas, and sort of the pullback about, was it Chechnya? Everywhere else, they're like, go for it.
Yeah. Well, and just quickly before we do go to break, if you're still going to do a break at this hour or at this time, is just quickly to say also that's 100% right. But one of the ramifications of what that has, and there's this new kind of, not new, but this heightened sense of like attacking civilians to try and destabilize and demoralize the Ukrainians has incensed the Ukrainians so much that there is a widespread move here in Ukraine, take it to the global stage, to officially designate Ukraine as a state sponsor of terror. It probably won't go anywhere because Russia is sitting on the UN Security Council, but there is a real strong movement I see the momentum gaining to actually designate them as a state sponsor of terror, which, in my humble opinion,
They are.
is 100% right.
Well, I mean, look at Syria, look at Chechnya, look at Georgia, look at the Transnistria, whatever it is. How do you pronounce it? The Transnistria, the Moldova,
Transnistria.
Yeah, Transnistria, and then not the least of which is that they're getting drones from Iran, a country we have already designated as a state sponsor of terror. And what are they going to use them for? Flying further inland to attack and terrorize the people of Ukraine while hunting the HIMARS, which are strictly there to needlepoint the supply routes for weapons and ammunition. We got to take a break. We'll be back right after this. More Philip Ittner. Follow him on Twitter at Philip Ittner, 1 L in Philip, 2 T's in Ittner. I'll tweet that out during the break, and at Johnny Million as well. I'm at Hal Sparks if you want to jump on that bandwagon. We'll be back. Welcome back to the show, everyone. I would like to say, for the record, we have such great conversations during the break. If you want to go to infotainmentwars.com on occasion or after the fact, or even to see the clips that we pull when Philip's with us and divide it up into little segments that we pop up on there, too. They're little bite-sized morsels of it. You can also get the show as a podcast on infotainmentwars.com. So that's kind of, infotainmentwars.com is our website. At sexyliberal.com, because that's where they do the Sexy Liberal Podcasting Network. I'm trying to do all my sales all at once, and then the phone rings. Yeah. Anyway, so I also tweeted out during the break, like I said I would, Philip's Twitter handle, Johnny's Twitter handle, and from mine. And also, I have been, I put out a few links to some of the damage and the video that was taken in Venetia that is coming out, because one of the things I want to talk to you about on a media level and on a personal level, that I think makes this is one of the most extraordinary and an absolute it's a hinge point in human history, in that this is probably going to be the most filmed and documented war in history with real detail. Yeah. And so open source intelligence with people, if you ever see OSINT, OSINT, is on a scale, what's available as OSINT, the scale that's available is on a level that I think almost any government would dream of having in any other conflict we'd ever had. So, yeah. So I don't know if that's how they're experiencing it as well.
It's not just because of the availability.
Mm-hmm.
It's the availability of cell phones, and everybody has a camera now, a good high-quality camera on their cell phone. It's the fact that drone technology is now at a commercial level, so you can have artillery spotters using commercial drones.
Right.
And it's the fact that there are now satellite imaging companies that are civilian, and you can buy satellite imaging from a firm in San Francisco and get precision. You can get almost hourly updates as to the movements, and it's made an advantage that Russia has relied upon, multi-billion-dollar investment into their satellite system, completely almost obsolete. Well, I don't want to say obsolete, but it has allowed the Ukrainians to play on that level.
Yeah, everybody does now.
Russia, without actually having to put any of their own satellites in orbit.
Yeah, it's not even expensive. That's the crazy part. Any dictator, king, monarch, or democracy in history could have effectively conquered the world at earlier points in our history if they had access to any of this stuff, much less all of it that is available. And again, the care that has to be taken with the Ukrainians when they are posting videos, that they have to wait until they've moved locations before they post anything. They need to take out the geotagging. They have to, affix different metadata to what they're doing. They either have to VPN, use a VPN for the software that they're using to film things so that it thinks it's 100 miles away or at some other place, or in the middle of a field. And that's where the government has to think about, we need to put a cell tower in the middle of nowhere that becomes the sync point so that if the Russians do think it's a real place and decide to strike it, they don't hurt anybody when they do it. That's a massive aspect of modern technological warfare. The amount of video, and I just posted like maybe 6 videos of the Venezia attack. The amount of video and evidence coming out of there around Bucha and the war crimes there. It's like, there's going to be a point where Russia can't pretend that the world isn't watching. Because they don't seem to, because they're keeping their people from watching. So they think the rest of the world can't either. It's like if I cover my eyes, I think you can't see me. It's the ravenous bug bladder beast of Troll, right? Or the
ostrich, the old, not the apocryphal idea that ostriches stick their head in the sand because they think,
Yeah,
if they you
that's right.
Them.
Well, there was a in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, the most ravenous creature in the world was the ravenous bug bladder beast of Troll, and he would, if you put a towel around your face, he thought that if you can't see him, he can't see you. It was the inversion of that idiocy. And there's almost,
right.
I would argue that that's more akin to what the Russians are doing, because effectively, they think that if they keep their people from seeing this stuff, that means the rest of the world can't see this stuff. If their people are blind, everyone is blind. And that is just, it's absurd. And it's also between VPNs and the fact that YouTube still exists. I'm sure they can't watch MSNBC's channel in Russia on YouTube because it's limited, but they could sure as crap see Jimmy Dore. And so that, maybe that's what they do. Maybe the illusion of having the ability to see things is how they get by. It's...
Yeah.
Now, let's get another question.
Also,
Gianni. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, another question.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me head back up here. Here we go. Does Iran, this is from Tim Farrell, does Iran helping Russia make the Saudis Ukrainian allies?
Yeah.
I mean, as a knock-on, especially if the Saudis send ships up to help break the blockade in the Black Sea port. Right now, what the Ukrainians are doing is they're using a waterway that they now have access to because Snake Island was reconquered, to actually get them into the river waterways and trying to get the grain out through the Danube. But it's a trickle compared to what they need to do. So if they can actually break out of the Black Sea and go through the Straits of Bosphorus out into the open Med, and if the Saudis are able to help them do that, there will be a lot of goodwill between Kiev and Riyadh, absolutely. And conversely, if the Iranians do supply the Russians, as it looks like they're about to do, with a fleet of their own, armed and dangerous drones, there will be no love lost between Kiev and Tehran. So the ripple effects continue to circle out onto a global stage.
Right. Yeah. Let's grab another one, Johnny, real quick.
So Ed's 3D Tech is also asking, can you ask Philip, are anti-sub weapons coming?
No. Not coming to the Ukrainians that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
The anti-sub weapons are incredibly difficult to obtain, and really, at the end of the day, what you really need to combat subs is other subs. That's why subs are so dangerous. No, they are not getting any kind of anti-sub weaponry anytime soon, and I think there's a variety of reasons for that, not least of which is the capacity and the capability to actually strike at a sub that is submerged. It's a technology and a capacity that I don't think anybody wants to provide that infrastructure to Ukraine quite yet. Again, really, what you need when you're up against subs is you need a surface fleet, or you need something out there on the water or under the water.
Yeah, and
launching a missile
won't do it. And
problematic.
It's like shooting a James Bond in a swimming pool or in a river. Like it just like hitting it is very limited. The one areas, I mean, technically speaking, they do have some boats that could go out there, but they're more in danger from the subs than they could actually return. And Snake Island, you could mount some stuff and maybe drive some stuff back, but then you're a sitting duck, and that's why the Russians couldn't take and hold. That's why they took it so quickly, and it's also why they lost it. so quickly, is because it's not that good. Now, Crimea is going to ultimately be the big snake island that's coming up. And since Zelensky has ordered his army to take the entire South, that includes Crimea. That is, and apparently, their belief that the HIMARS are working and their awareness of the limitations of the Russians as far as their troops are, that there was a video out of them training conscripts and like volunteers. There was not a single dude under 55 in that video, and it was a promo video that the Russians were putting out, like, aha, gotcha. Like, that is crazy. Again, this is like going back to the Kazakh conversation we had last time. There are parts of this that we're kind of like, it's amazing how we're taking it as kind of normal. And yet it's not. It's bizarre.
Yeah. Well, and the fact that they're trying to recruit from prisons, what they're desperately trying to avoid taking conscripts from Western Russia, basically European Russia.
Right.
So the power structure within Russia, which is Petersburg, Moscow, and to a certain extent down into like Rostov and then over into Sochi and the Black Sea regions. They don't, and I'll even throw Ekaterinburg into that. They don't want to press gang from those areas because if they lose, that is where a proper uprising might actually happen.
Is that because of, you think,
from those areas start
wealth?
dying.
Is that, you think that would be wealth and education? You know what I mean? That keeps them, like, that the families around there would actually care, as opposed to they basically getting them from Siberia is like getting a bunch of hicks that's in their way of thinking that won't have a recourse.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think it's the education level. I don't think it's that they want to expend their elite. I think it's the fact that that's on their doorstep. And I mean, you have the capital in Moscow and what is called the second capital in Petersburg, and historically, that's where revolts come in Russia, and it's right on their doorstep. So if the local populace in Moscow decides that they're unhappy, they can march right on down to the White House, to the Duma, and they can stand right out in front and start they can have a protest on Red Square. They can march down Tverskaya, Pushkinskaya Ploshchad. There are really strong institutions within the capital and within Petersburg where if they were flooded with protesters, that might spark something. So they don't want an unhappy populace right on their doorstep in Petersburg or Moscow. I think that's more than anything else.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think we can get one more. Well, let's take a break and we'll get it on the other side. Now, because of the audio issues I have with Chicago, you won't be able to hear the happy song. I'm very sad. But we'll come back right after this. We'll make it up. Well, it'll make it more special next time. We'll be back right after this. It's the HouseSparks Radio program, mega worldwide on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk. Infotainmentwars.com and, of course, patreon.com/HouseSparks. Welcome back. So technically in our happy ending, I would like to say I personally am happy about a couple of things. One is right after the broadcast today, I'm going over to my second cousin Emma's graduation party that everybody is over there blowing up balloons for her, and we're very happy for her. Secondly, that I get to share this show.
One of those fifth grade graduations or high school,
What's her
college?
name?
Emma.
Prezdovlayo, Emma.
Prezdovlaya.
Congratulations.
Emma, yes, right. So, and that I get to, after years of having a great friendship with Johnny Million in high school, being able to do this show with him regularly every week is fantastic. And our new friend, Philip Ittner, who is alive and well in Kiev and has been, we brush it aside, but when we talk about those air raid sirens and the seriousness of what's going on, you are choosing to put yourself in some level of mortal harm by being where you are because you care about those people and you're there to say it. And I know you're not comfortable blowing it up into any kind of big thing, but it is a genuine thing. It is on its face and materially a real choice by you that I appreciate and I respect. And I just want you to know that as we breeze by these conversations, much like you breeze by your air raid siren sometimes, it is not forgotten, and the seriousness of it I consider regularly. So yeah.
Well, I appreciate that, and I don't want. And somebody had asked actually to answer a question. This is supposed to be a happy ending, so I will answer that question about my favorite Ukrainian food. But before I do, make no mistake about it. being in this country right now, being in a war like this is exhausting. And
Yes.
everybody is affected by it. Every single Ukrainian, every single person who is on this territory right now is affected by what's happening.
Right.
Whether it's the constant threat of violence with the air raid sirens, and we're reminded that we live under threat, or whether it's not, whether it's seeing the refugees flood out and the children with that 1,000-yard look on their face because they've seen things that no children should ever see, or suffered losses that no child should ever suffer, or to see the men coming back from the front line wounded and walking the streets. You cannot be here without realizing that you are, one, under threat, and two, that you are living amongst real human tragedy, real suffering. It is nothing compared to what is happening out east, where entire cities are being flattened and where people are losing everything that they own, losing their loved ones, losing their future, losing everything that they worked for. That is a level of tragedy that is on a separate scale. And I've been under fire before, and I've seen that before, and it's horrible. But make no mistake about it, this war is affecting every single person who's here. So I've been here for 5 months. I feel that for my own well-being, I need a break. So I'm going to be out of here in about 2+ weeks. I'll be in the States for much of the month of August.
Answering all the
and then I will
questions we've
return.
got listed up for you, Phil. Good job.
He's blazing through them. It's good.
Yeah.
Well, anyhow, so I'm going to head back to the States. I'm going to get some rest and relaxation. I'm going to refit. I'm going to get some new equipment. I'm going to meet with some people. I'm going to set up some stuff so that when I come back here, I'm better situated to do what it is that I want to be doing. And then I'll stick it out as long as I can. But there's a time when you do realize you need to take a break, because if you break yourself, you're of no good to anybody. So I've been here for 5 months. I'm pretty much at the end of my tether. I need to get away for a bit. And that's fine. I'm okay with it. It's not. This is not my first war. But I hope it will be my last. But when your body and your mind tells you you've got to go, you got to go.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, we're gonna get you on your own kind of traveling food show after this, and that'll be, it'll be the We Can Pickle That tour, and you'll just try great, like European, Northern European. You go anywhere where shots haven't been fired in months.
How much time we got here?
We got 8 minutes. Yeah, we got 8 minutes.
No, I'm all for that.
Speaking
I don't like the alarms. I don't like when something goes boom. It's no fun. But this is supposed to be the happy ending. So what's my favorite Ukrainian food?
Yes.
I don't know. There's a bunch. There's salo, which is just kind of like it's like bacon without the meat. It's just the fat, and they serve it almost close to frozen on black bread with horseradish. It's terrible for your heart, but it's delicious. There's vareniki, which are like dumplings.
That for me?
You can have
bacon
it with
without the meat. Is it just the fat?
Yeah, it's called salo, S-A-L-O, salo, and it's pig fat. It's just pig fat.
Oh, okay, okay.
It's terrible for your heart. It's terrible, terrible, terrible for your heart, but it's tasty.
So that's like jellied, and they spread that on bread with horseradish.
It's more like a. It would be more like kind of a butter.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with Templeton. That sounds amazing. Yeah.
Large spread. Oh, okay. Yeah.
That sounds.
On really, really heavy dark bread. It's delicious, but it's terrible for you. And then there's vareniki, which are dumplings, and that's meat. You can get them in meat. You can get them with potatoes and onion. You can even get a sweet version of it with cherries. They're all delicious. Normally, the savory ones are covered in sour cream and chopped dill. Oh,
I will eat.
There's
any
what else is there? There's always
any
pickle.
Culture.
That is true. I will attest to that.
No, the vareniki are fantastic. Salo, vareniki. Their version of vodka is called gorilka, and they make a gorilka where it's infused with horseradish, and it's disgusting. But it's a very good digestive. It's a very good digestive. So if you have too much to eat, you can get a
colon blow.
A shot of what's called krinovika.
Yeah,
and it's horseradish infused vodka. and it'll
and it's taken
it'll clear your
rectally
nasal
twice.
passages,
Yeah,
and it'll settle your stomach.
yeah, taken rectally twice daily, with an enema bag that somebody jumps
And of
on.
course, there's chicken Kiev.
Right.
There's chicken Kiev, and there's kebabs, and there's a whole range of food. It tends to be pretty heavy, admittedly, but it can be real. Borscht, of course, I love me some borscht, beet soup, beetroot soup with
I like
some
Phil's expression when he's talking about this stuff.
Yeah, see, I told you, it's a show waiting to happen. Yeah. Also, one of the reasons why beetroot soup is so ubiquitous in those regions and why borscht is so important is as a dietary balance to the amount of smeared pig fat that you're eating, because beets are great for your heart. And so it is naturally occurring that if you're going to have this kind of heavy, greasy kind of diet, you're naturally also, to keep from dying, you're going to eat something else that compensates for it. It's why all British people drink tea, because it's ditch water for your gut bacteria, because all of their food murders all the good bacteria in your body, and the tea puts it back. That every society comes up with their solution to their own problem that they enjoy because it's too delicious.
Absolutely.
That's borscht.
I gave some to Malcolm Nance one time, and he had one bite of it, and he went, "Nope, not for me."
I believe that.
It's funny to me that nobody's asking me about Malcolm. The one time I can actually talk about him because he's back in the States on his book tour.
But what about Malcolm Nance?
Yeah, no, I gave Malcolm some salad. He was like, "Nope."
We're running out of time on the end of this. Whatever. I've tweeted out some stuff on the line as well. Some of the, like I said, some of the damage in Vizia, and a lot of it's very seriously to kind of like button this up in this is that there is a cascading effect from the Russians being in Ukraine and doing the damage that they are doing, and not the least of which, of course, is the coming famines that are going to occur this winter, this fall, early into next spring, especially as you know, certain crops don't get rotated, certain grounds is just too damaged to do it, and also the shipping and the other problems that come from it. I don't know if you saw this, Philip, and it's my turn to like drop some news on you, but I don't know if you've followed the Evergrande crisis in China, which is sort of the canary in the coal mine. It's a giant canary. No. Evergrande is the biggest real estate developer in China. It has debts over $300 billion. China's real estate market is that's the only place people can invest their money privately. It's 30% of the economy. Evergrande collapsed. And a lot of these secondary banks that held a lot of monies, there is apparently a mortgage strike going on in China right now that people finally, because it was so egregious, because they couldn't take their money out of their bank and they started refusing to pay their mortgage. They started protesting in front of the bank saying, somebody help us, local government, the big government, the central government. And instead, they sent an army of white-shirted thugs. I put this footage up on my Twitter feed yesterday. I've never seen anything like it, except for in Russia, was these guys just barrel into this crowd of women and children and men just standing out there holding up paper signs like a football game where they just all came charging in on this, and like the entire team, every team just storms the stands, beating people, dragging them by their hair, kicking them, just basically, and they were people yelling what's the Chinese word for mafia thugs at them as they were going by. It's horrifying. The only thing I've ever seen close to that was Russian group fights, which is, young men with nothing to do, standing in a street and just deciding to fight for nothing else but to fight.
We can only hope this is an indication that autocracies are now on their back feet.
That's right.
Foot, and that democracies are actually making a resumption, and we can thank the Ukrainians.
That's right. Look at that. That was exactly what I was getting to. Is the whole point of Russia's thing was democracies don't work. They suck. Look how great we're handling things. And now you're seeing the contagion spread within. It's reassuring and frightening at the same time. The world is in a big flux. Philip, thank you for being with us. Be safe.
Always a pleasure. Thanks, everyone.
I'll see you Wednesday, I hope. And then Johnny Million, take care. Have a great week. And we'll see you guys. Everybody else, we'll see you guys next week.